It was 2 a.m. when Karen Peton looked up at me from the utility shed, already holding bolt cutters in her hand, like she was some sort of superhero. "Watch me," she said. And with a snap, the power went out. My grandfather's oxygen machine stopped. Just like that, his life support equipment, everything keeping a Korean War veteran alive, went dead. And that's how it started. With a $47 fine and a woman who had no idea she was about to start a battle she couldn't win. Let me tell you how we got here. My name is Roman Delacqua, and I've been an electrical contractor for 12 years. Before that, I was in the Air Force, rewiring fighter jets. But none of that really matters now. What matters is my grandfather, Ezra. He's the reason I moved here to Willowbrook Heights. He raised me after my parents died when I was 8. He's the kind of man who still stands for the national anthem, even though his knees crack like dry branches. A Purple Heart recipient, a man who'd seen more than most of us ever will. And now he was fighting for his life in a hospital, hooked up to machines that would never let him breathe the same again. After a long 6 days in the ICU, the doctors told me Ezra needed home oxygen for the rest of his life. So I bought this house, a single-story ranch in a quiet neighborhood of 47 homes, the kind where the biggest problem is someone trimming their hedges too early. I converted the master bedroom into a home recovery suite. It was hospital-grade, oxygen concentrator, backup tanks, the works. It was what he needed. It was everything I could do to make sure the man who raised me could live the rest of his days with some dignity. Things were fine for a while. Peaceful, even. Our HOA president at the time, Mrs. Sterling, was a retired nurse who actually understood medical equipment. She knew what we were going through, and she didn't mind. The rules were the rules, but she had common sense. Then, she moved to assisted living, and the neighborhood elected Karen Peton as the new president. Big mistake. Karen was everything you'd expect from someone who thought rules were more important than people. She had that severe bob haircut, the kind that looked like it was cut with a ruler. She was divorced, lived alone in the biggest house in the neighborhood, and carried around a tablet like it was a badge of honor. She didn't just want to run the HOA. She wanted to control everything. And for the first time in months, my peaceful life with Ezra was about to be turned upside down. The first thing Karen did was target my drought-resistant landscaping. I'd planted desert willows and Palo Verde trees, native species that could survive the Arizona heat. But according to her, they didn't follow the HOA guidelines. $47 fine for non-approved plants. Seriously? I tried to reason with her, explained how they were environmentally responsible, but Karen didn't care. Rules were rules. Week after week, fines escalated. Noise complaints about my work truck starting at 5 a.m. A commercial vehicle violation for Ezra's oxygen delivery truck. She was on a mission to make my life hell. But that was just the beginning. One day, I caught her taking pictures of Ezra through his bedroom window. She was photographing his oxygen concentrator. My grandfather was laying there, in his bed, barely able to breathe without it. And there she was clicking away, documenting his medical equipment like it was a crime scene. That's when I knew something had to be done. I confronted her, told her she was crossing the line. But she just smiled, cold as ice. "This is a residential neighborhood, not a hospital," she said, like she'd just solved the world's problems. It was clear now. Karen wasn't just enforcing HOA rules. She was targeting my grandfather, trying to force him out, trying to drive us away with her fines and threats. And I wasn't going to let her get away with it. That night, I did some research. I found a case about a disabled veteran in Texas who'd fought an HOA over wheelchair ramp restrictions. Federal law, specifically the Fair Housing Act, says that medical necessities trump local HOA covenants. That gave me hope. I spent the next few days gathering information and printing out guidelines. Then, Karen called an emergency HOA board meeting. She was bringing the heat, sending out emails accusing me of creating a zoning violation that endangered the neighborhood. I was ready. Walking into that fluorescent-lit room felt like walking into enemy territory. Karen was smug, clicking through her slideshow of photos of my grandfather's equipment, calling it an industrial facility. The room smelled like burnt coffee. The chairs scraped against the linoleum. But then Mrs. Patterson, a retired nurse, raised her hand. "That's just a home oxygen concentrator," she said. "My husband used one after his stroke. They're quieter than most dishwashers." Karen didn't like that, but it was too late. I stood up, papers in hand. "Ma'am, with respect, you're completely wrong about the law," I said. "The Fair Housing Act requires reasonable accommodations for disabilities. This is established case law." The room went quiet. The board members shifted uncomfortably. And then, just as I thought I had the upper hand, Bradley from the city zoning office spoke up. "Actually," he said, "federal disability law does supersede local." Karen glared at him, but she didn't get the chance to respond. The truth was coming out, and Karen knew it. During her bathroom break, Mrs. Patterson leaned over. "She's been showing your house to potential buyers," she whispered. That's when it hit me. Karen wasn't just harassing me over medical equipment. She was trying to force me out. She wanted me to sell my house below market value so her real estate partners could buy it cheap and flip it. She was running a scam, using her position to manipulate property values. But she made one fatal mistake. She tried to cut my grandfather's life support. And when she did that, she triggered federal protections that would destroy her. Karen had no idea what was coming. I started gathering evidence, security footage, witness statements, everything I needed to prove she was running a real estate scam targeting disabled residents. The next few weeks were a blur. Karen tried to implement compliance inspections for my grandfather's medical equipment, issuing fines for things like medical waste and excessive deliveries. But with every violation, I fought back. I recorded everything. I hired a lawyer. And soon, I had enough to expose her scam for what it was: fraud. When Karen's next move involved trying to cut the power to my grandfather's life support, I had a backup plan. I had a hospital-grade backup generator on its way, ready to park right in front of her house. The generator would create enough noise to drown out any complaints she could possibly make. And it would make her attempts to cut my grandfather's power look like the petty sabotage it was. But the moment I realized I'd won was when I showed up at her house with the generator. The 53-foot truck blocked her driveway, and the noise it made was enough to make her realize the game was over. The HOA's power was nullified. I had a legal right to protect my grandfather's equipment, and now, so did everyone else in the neighborhood. Karen's reign of terror came to an end not with a lawsuit, but with a truck. A big, loud, legally protected truck. The neighbors who'd once sided with her now saw her for what she was: a predator. And soon after, she resigned as HOA president. The FBI got involved. And as it turned out, Karen's financial situation wasn't looking so good. She had racked up a lot of debt, and it was all coming back to haunt her. By the time it was all over, Karen's house was sold at a loss, and the neighborhood had learned a valuable lesson. You don't mess with a disabled veteran's rights. And you definitely don't try to use HOA rules to force people out of their homes for personal gain. The new HOA president? Me. And my first act was to add medical rights protections to our community covenant. No one would ever have to go through what we went through. Karen may have thought she was just enforcing rules, but in the end, she learned that there are some battles you simply cannot win. And when you mess with the wrong person, the consequences can be much bigger than you ever imagined. So here's my question for you. What would you do if someone tried to take away the life support your loved one needed to survive? Would you fight back? Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear what you think.